Today is December 26th.
Wait a minute, I heard something on television last night.
What was that?
You know the closed captioning?
Yeah.
They were talking about the weather so bad, and the analyst said, what was it? I'll think of it later.
Okay. It'll come to you. With the closed caption thing?
Closed captioning says something totally different.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
But it was very appropriate. Okay.
Well, what we got is December 26th, 2009, and we're just going to interview Clifford Russell Youngstrom Sr., right?
I guess.
We'll call you Senior. And also interviewing is Jesse Youngstrom and
I think I was just picking my nose.
Andrew Evans.
Evans.
And you're scratching your faces. We'll classify that. We can classify that. Anyway, of course, John Youngstrom here. So, the camera's going to pretty much stay on you. But we can do whatever we need to do. Now,
I didn't know it was going to be so professional.
That's
what you get. That's what you get.
Either.
Well, here, let me start this little recorder too. Just pay no attention to that. All right. Now, what's up? Early? Oh, what year? What's your birthday?
What's my birthday?
Yeah.
I was born December the 9th, 1926.
What day of the week was it?
I have no idea.
You were
I think
born
it was a Wednesday, but I'm not sure.
You were born at home.
I was born on Van Vinegar and DeTati Streets in St. Louis, Missouri. That's right where 44 goes back past.
Hampton and all that.
No,
Well, they just tore it down by the botanical gardens.
yeah,
They just tore those
it's
houses down.
just a little west of the Botanical Garden. It was a bunch of apartments, pretty new apartments, and because a tornado had gone through there,
When was that?
sort of wrecked things. No, I think the tornado was in 27. It was when I was about 6 months old. And my mom was hanging clothes out in the backyard,
Yeah.
and it got black, green. It looked pretty ugly, so she threw me in a clothes basket and took me in the house. And it took out a whole bunch in that area. Also the arena. It just about devastated the arena, took most of the roof off.
Wow. So that was in 27?
My dad was a carpenter, and he helped restore that roof.
That was a big roof. I've been in the old barn a bunch of times. Speaking of which, didn't you know somebody that raced in the old barn, a racer? Helen Stevens. Remember Helen Stevens, the Fulton Flash?
Oh yeah, she didn't race in that, did she?
Yeah, she ran some races in the. Now Helen Stevens, you worked with her in your latter years at the Defense Mapping.
She was the librarian at the center, and
She won a gold medal in the 36 Olympics
36
in the 100 meter dash.
she worked for me and had a pretty good group there. But she talked like a man.
She
Her
sound, I
voice
know.
was really low.
I interviewed her.
why.
And what they did is anytime they got a new employee in the library, she would follow this girl, usually a girl, had to be a girl. She'd go into the, John, when the other girl would go in, and she'd go into the next stall. And about the appropriate time, she'd say, "Hey honey, would you pass me the paper?" And boy, it just about floored this girl.
Yeah. So, but what did Hitler do to Helen?
He sort of wanted to have her checked.
Kind of like that gal
He
now.
couldn't believe anyone could run that fast and be a girl.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a little sidebar. We can do those little sentimental journey sidebars. I just remember when you said the old barn, because you had me call her up when I was in 8th grade, and I had to do a story for something in school.
Oh, you did?
I interviewed her. Yeah, she did have a deep voice.
She was a nice lady.
She said Hitler didn't think she was a woman.
Boy, she could run.
Yeah, between Jesse Owens being a black guy and her being
A woman. Yeah.
kind of screwed the old Aryan race thing up before.
She did other things other than that. She was in the dash. She was really great, but I think she ran the hurdles too. I'm not sure.
Okay. Hey, all right. So you born in 27. There's a tornado.
26.
26. What was your? Well, whose house? Whose apartment was it?
It was ours. My dad and mom had the apartment.
I thought you were born at Grandma Bardot's.
No, No, we had that apartment with my two sisters. I don't know for how long, but a little sidebar on that too. When the doctor, I was delivered at home. When the doctor came, he brought a nurse with him. And when he finished delivering me and everything she was ready to go, he started to charge my dad for the nurse. He said, "I didn't order a nurse. I'm gonna pay for her. You're the one I paid." So he wouldn't pay for the nurse.
Wow. So he still owes her. He still owes her. Yeah. Hey. Okay. So your sisters and brothers' names are?
Dorothy was the oldest. She was 8 years older than me, and Jenny is 6 years older.
And did all three of you have different fathers, or?
Well, my two sisters had a different father.
And then who was that?
Her first husband was a guy by the name of Ira Coleman. He's buried out of JB. I found his grave out there one time and took my sister to it.
Ira Coleman, so they were Colemans.
And when I think my mother, some way or another, had the marriage annulled because he was sick about that time. I think he served in World War I, but he ended up being epileptic or something, and was then unable to really support the family, so they had it annulled.
Wow.
And then she married my dad in 1925.
And what was your dad's name?
Harry Youngstrom.
Harry Sylvester.
Harry Sylvester Youngstrom.
Don't you forget it. All right. Your mom's name?
Alma.
Alma what?
Emma Blattner.
All right. So let's go.
Here's German.
Let's back up and talk about the Youngstroms. Your dad, Harry, had some brothers.
He had two older brothers, a younger brother and a sister.
Names?
It was the oldest was Mark, and then Charlie, then my dad, and then Herb and Sybil.
Sybil. All right. So their dad was.
That's the funny part of the story. My grandfather came over from Sweden with a twin sister.
Really? Okay.
Her name was Joanna, and his was Carl.
Carl what?
Fredrickson.
Fredrickson?
But while he was in the Queen's Guard, he was in the Queen's Guard in Sweden when he was about 19, 20 years old. And that's the only picture I have of him.
That won the military uniform?
And for some reason, because of this tradition of, I guess all over Scandinavia, if Carl had a son, it would be Carl's son. So the name changed every generation, unless you kept the same name. But he would born Carl Fredrickson. Had he not changed his name and came over here, the name would have persisted. We would have been Fredricksons.
So what, did he change the name to Youngstrom?
Well, he changed to Youngstrom because there was a push on in Sweden at that time to break this cycle of son and daughter, which was getting rather confusing. Especially in the military and in the civil service, they were allowed to change their name.
So he changed it before he came over?
So he changed it before he came over, and in essence, I guess he came over as Carl Youngstrom, and his twin sister was still Fredrickson.
Did they come through New Orleans or did they go through New York?
They came through either New York or Brooklyn, I can't recall, but
Okay.
on the East Coast.
Whatever happened, Ida?
Who's that?
What was his twin sister's name? His twin sister, Carl's?
Joanna.
Whatever happened to her?
She married, had some children and so on, and I lost track of her. I couldn't trace her. She must have moved when they were married.
And where did they first come to?
Well, they came in, the mystery in my life anyhow, and I've been in a genealogy for quite a while. We can't figure out what he did once he landed here. He ended up in
Nebraska?
Yankton, South Dakota.
South Dakota.
But, and I guess also his twin sister. But from that point back, I don't have any idea what he did working his way across the country, and I'd love to know that. But I've not been able to trace it anywhere.
You know, there's some Youngstroms in Hawaii from I was talking to this one guy. He said it was somebody from California that moved out to Micronesia. I guess a white dude. But that's all I know really. But they were came from California to Micronesia, and then from there went all over the
What was her name?
Youngstrom.
Not Fredrickson, right?
No, so I don't know anything about that.
Well, we would have all been Fredricksons had they not changed it.
All right, so Carl Youngstrom's in South Dakota. What's he do for a living in South Dakota?
Well, he worked at a gypsum plant in Yankton for a while, and I think the plant burned. And they moved to Allen, Nebraska, which is near Sioux City, Iowa. Pretty about 20 miles, I guess. And the family was being raised there.
Now, who is the family? Is it Herb, Mark, Charlie?
It was all of them, yeah.
And his wife's name was Carl's?
Well, my grandmother's name was Hilma Anderson.
Hilma Anderson.
And that side of the family were from Denmark. Actually, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland even, was one time Scandinavia. That was all Scandinavian. So people are all alike, but they're different in some of their traditions and so on.
So Hilma has Mark, Charlie, Harry, Herb, and Sybil.
And Sybil.
And she got. And was he did the gypsum plant thing? Did he farm?
No. When he moved to Allen, Nebraska, he became a blacksmith. And that's where he was at the time. He was drinking pretty bad. And my grandmother went to the drugstore where he was getting his liquor. And boy, she gave the druggist a hard time about that, said, don't you give him anything to drink. Well, they had a little secret thing going. The pharmacist would throw it over the fence into the sawdust pile. It was on the other side of the fence, and he was still getting liquor. So in 1906 or 07, he left a note saying, I wish I could have waited and taken you all, and shot himself. So when that happened, my grandmother, Hilma, didn't have any means of support, so I think they got it was a insurance policy that was going to at least get them going. And she decided, she met up with a guy named Russell Bardo, and Bardo was, I think he was in the picture long before that.
Oh, okay.
There was
So
something.
he was in the back. He was in the wings.
He was in the wings when they worked at this hospital in Yankton. My grandmother worked there, and so did he. Well, they were going to get married, and so they moved to Sioux City, Iowa, and opened a restaurant.
Where are the kids?
With them.
Oh, all the kids were with them.
But at the time they moved, Russell tells Hilma, you know, I'd like to get married, but I'm not going to take on all these kids. So you're going to have to, put them in a home or something. And she loved him so much that she did this. She put all the boys in a boys and girls home in Sioux City, Iowa. Just kept Sybil.
When you say put them in a home, she dumped them
in a
dumped
home.
them off.
Right. And I know that Herb always wondered whether she intended to come back and get them, because she told them that. Well, in the first week, Charlie and Mark were gone. They were in their early teens, and they just took off, went back to Nebraska and lived with some of the relatives and worked their farms with them and so on. Lost track of them there.
So a couple of them went off.
Right away.
Didn't they run away? You used to tell me that they used to run away a lot.
Well, they did, and stayed runaway. So Herb and Dad tried it, but they caught them and brought them back. And at that point, when they were, I think,
how old were they about?
Dad was about 9, Herb was about 7.
And they were running away?
Oh yeah.
Living on the land?
Well, they didn't get very far at all.
I mean,
the first stop they made was one of their uncles or something, and he just called the home and they came and got them. So they didn't have much chance.
They got turned in by their own family.
Yeah. But
That's pretty cool.
They brought him back, and then this family from Carroll, Nebraska, named John, I forget his wife's name, John Herren, H-E-R-R-E-N.
Yeah.
He was a German, well-educated man, had a farm, needed help. He was getting older. So they came over and they wanted Harry. They liked Harry.
Strong kid? Yeah.
And Holmes says they've been broken up too much already. He said it's got to be both of them or not.
Harry and Herb or
Yeah,
not?
Harry and Herb. So they took them both and brought them over to Carroll, Nebraska, and raised them. And they worked the farm.
Did they adopt them?
Mr. Herron said, I don't want you to lose your name because you're liable to connect up with your family again someday. I won't legally adopt you, but you're welcome here. He educated them through through the primary school, and wanted them to go to high school, was intending to send them to college, but my dad said no, he'd rather work the farm, and Herb was right on Dad's sleeve all the time. He'd say, me too, you know. So they didn't go any further than that.
High school, and that was it? Just to high school?
8th grade.
8th grade.
So in 1918, they were now, my dad was about 18, and Herb was, 16. They went to Sioux City for something, because that was the biggest town nearby. And while they were there, my dad joined the Army. And they rode there on a motorcycle, my dad's motorcycle.
What kind of motorcycle?
I think it was an Indian. And when he told Herb what he had done, Herb was really down falling here, I'm gonna lose my brother now. And Harry told him, I'm gonna give you the motorcycle. So you just go on back and you'll be fine. You're getting grown up now, so you can take care of yourself. So Herb drives back on the motorcycle and Dad goes in the Army and ends up over in Europe.
No delay enlistment program. Just goes that day and goes off and joins the Army that day?
That day.
And, okay, now where's Mark and Charlie? They don't know where they're at.
They're already pretty well adults.
And they don't know where
they don't know
Hilma is or
Harry
not.
and Herb don't know where they are.
And Hilma's their mom, they don't know where that is.
They don't know where Hilma is.
Alright, so now it's just her by himself living with the Carrolls.
Yeah. Carol's had two daughters, grown daughters. In fact, one of the daughters had a daughter of her own, and the daughter of her, one of their children, were Herb's age. So he looked on her like a sister. But they were nice to him. They bought him a bicycle and took care of them.
They raised him like a kid.
Raised him. So the next thing that happened was Herb was about 16, he got very sick, very ill, and it was a heart problem. So he went to one of the daughters of the Herons was a doctor. Very unusual in those days. She checked Herb out and said, you've got a problem more than I can handle. You need to go to a doctor, it's a heart specialist. And about that time, Hilma had located where they went. So she contacted Herb in Carroll, Nebraska, where the Herons lived, and just begged Herb to come to St. Louis. Well, he was still miffed. He wasn't really happy about the whole situation, but he was sick. So he decided he'd go to St. Louis.
All right, I gotta stop and answer two questions here. We gotta get two things answered. One is, didn't Mark and Harry meet up somewhere in the war?
Oh, yeah, there was they didn't meet, but here's how they got connected again. Mark and Charlie went over early in the war, about a year earlier than my dad.
Where'd they enlist from? You ever find out?
Silver Creek, Nebraska.
So they both went in at Silver Creek?
And the whole group of Silver Creek went in at the same time.
Do you remember their middle names at all? Mark, Charlie?
Julius was Mark Julius.
Okay.
And Charlie was, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But anyhow, when Harry arrived in France, he was one of the...
Was it England or France?
France.
Okay, it was in France.
And when he arrived there, one of the people that was already there said, your name's Youngstrom? He said, yeah. He said, you know Mark and Charlie Youngstrom? He said, yeah, they're my brothers. Where are they? He said they